Most gardeners waste months chasing the so-called perfect hot compost, turning piles obsessively, adding nitrogen in precise ratios, and monitoring temperatures with expensive thermometers, only to end up with a medium that burns plants and loses most of its nutrients. The truth is, for serious gardeners who want long-term soil health, hot compost is overrated. Fungal-dominated leaf mold isn't just better, it's transformative for your garden. If you care about growing real food, you'll want to stick around and see why. Also, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button because we're diving into techniques that will change the way you think about composting, and I'll be showing a tool that makes this process foolproof. Link in the description for the RioTemp Backyard Pro Compost Thermometer. Most hot compost piles are a waste of time and nutrients. I see it all the time. Gardeners dump fresh grass clippings, kitchen scraps, and nitrogen fertilizers into a pile, cover it, and start obsessively flipping it to hit that 140 to 160 degree ideal temperature. The problem is those intense temperatures don't just break down organic matter, they also kill beneficial fungi and microbial diversity. By the time your pile matures, much of the nutrient complexity has gone, leaving you with something that works as a mulch but doesn't feed the soil the way it should. In practical terms, this means weaker plants, less resilience against pests, and more dependency on synthetic fertilizers. Fungal leaf mold is slow, but it works where it counts. Leaf mold isn't glamorous, it doesn't heat up, it doesn't smell like baking earthworms, and it takes time. But that slow decomposition creates a humus-rich product dominated by fungi rather than bacteria. Why does that matter? Fungal networks are exactly what mature soils rely on. They break down tough lignin and cellulose, improve soil structure, and help plants access nutrients gradually over the growing season. In raised beds, for example, mixing partially decomposed leaf mold into your planting mix improves water retention dramatically without creating soggy conditions. In hydroponic systems, I've added leaf mold to cocoa, coir, and peat blends to give seedlings a gentle, slow-release microbial boost. Stop measuring temperature obsessively. Start observing your materials. I know some gardeners swear by compost thermometers, and they're not useless, they're just often misapplied. For a hot composter, I like the RioTemp Backyard Pro Compost Thermometer because it takes accurate readings deep in large piles, and the PDF guide shows exactly how to manage moisture and turning for efficiency. But if your goal is leaf mold, you don't need to chase 160 degrees. You're looking for a cool, damp and shaded pile, ideally around 50 to 70 degrees. It's about consistency, not spikes. For backyard gardens, this might mean piling fallen leaves in a corner, lightly watering if they dry out, and leaving them alone for 6 to 12 months. In hydroponics, leaf mold can be used as a top dressing in soil-based components, but again, no heat is necessary. So here's how to make leaf mold correctly without wasting your time. First, just start by collecting leaves. Oak, maple, beech, these work great, but honestly, don't stress over getting the perfect mix. If you can shred them, that's great because it'll speed up decomposition. But hey, it's not mandatory. Just pile the leaves in a corner of your yard or in a mesh bin and keep them moist but not soggy. Usually rain will handle the moisture, but it's worth checking every now and then. In my raised beds, I often layer about 4 to 6 inches of leaves directly over the garden soil in autumn, then cover them with straw or cardboard to keep them from blowing away. Over the winter, fungi will colonize those leaves, slowly breaking them down into a dark, spongy material. Unlike hot compost, this leaf mold keeps all those complex carbohydrates that feed your soil microbes and slowly release nutrients to your plants. Let's talk about mixing leaf mold into your garden soil. Once your leaf mold is dark and crumbly, it's ready to go. In a small backyard garden, I'll usually mix it at roughly a 2-to-1 ratio with the existing soil. This really helps improve tilth, water retention, and nutrient availability. In raised beds, you can layer about 2 to 4 inches directly into the bed each year, and just let the next planting season work it in naturally through digging and watering. For hydroponic setups that include soil or cocoa coir, I'll mix leaf mold at about 10 to 15% by volume. This introduces fungi without overloading the system with decomposing matter that could cause ammonia spikes. The key thing is moderation. Leaf mold works best as a slow, ongoing amendment, not as a one-time blitz. Now, why does leaf mold beat hot compost for long-term soil health? Well, hot compost is fast. Leaf mold, on the other hand, is slow. But, speed isn't always an advantage. Hot piles often favor bacteria over fungi, and when bacteria dominate, nutrients become more soluble and can leach out or volatilize. Leaf mold, though, creates this living, fungal-rich network right in your soil. Plants can tap into these networks for nitrogen, phosphorus, and micronutrients as they need them. From my experience, beds amended with leaf mold consistently produce stronger root systems and more resilient plants than beds that relied purely on fast, hot compost. I've grown everything from tomatoes to kale in beds, enriched each year with leaf mold, and the difference is clear. Less disease, more even growth, and much better drought tolerance. So, let's talk about some common mistakes folks make when trying to create leaf mold. One big mistake is overwatering. If your leaves stay soggy for months, they can actually rot instead of forming that nice structured leaf mold. This creates those anaerobic conditions that, honestly, smell pretty bad and tend to attract pests. Another common misstep is impatience. Some gardeners get a bit nervous around month 3 and start turning their piles or even adding fertilizers. But really, it's best to leave it alone. Disturbing it just slows down the fungal colonization you want. And finally, you want to avoid mixing in too much fresh, nitrogen-rich material like grass clippings right into your leaf piles. Doing that pushes the process toward bacteria dominance, which kind of defeats the fungal advantage you're actually after. Now, about combining leaf mold with other compost strategies. I'm definitely not saying you should abandon all your other compost methods. Hot compost, for example, is still super valuable for certain jobs, like quickly processing kitchen scraps or making a nice seed-starting medium. The real trick is integrating it all together. Personally, I'll often keep a hot compost pile for fresh scraps and then use that finished material alongside leaf mold in my raised beds. For example, layering about 3 inches of hot compost with 3 inches of leaf mold creates a really balanced, nutrient-rich and well-structured bed. That way, your plants get fed right away, and you're also building long-term soil health. Using tools can really make leaf mold management a lot easier. Even though leaf mold is pretty low maintenance, keeping an eye on moisture and the depth of your pile can be helpful, especially if you're working with a larger garden. This is where the RioTemp Backyard Pro Compost Thermometer can still come in handy. While you're not really chasing high heat with leaf mold, the thermometer helps make sure your leaf piles aren't accidentally getting too warm in sunny spots. Its long 36-inch stem lets you check deep into your piles without having to dig everything up, and the digital guide gives you some great tips on pile structure and moisture management. I've linked it in the description. Seriously, it's worth it if you're aiming to make consistent, high-quality amendments without all the guesswork. So let's talk about when to apply leaf mold to get the best results. Timing here is really critical. For garden beds, I like to apply leaf mold in late autumn or early winter. The fungal networks start to establish themselves over the cooler months, and by spring, your soil is alive and ready for planting. In raised beds, adding it in spring works too, but you'll get faster fungal colonization if the soil isn't frozen. For potted plants and container gardens, I'll mix leaf mold at about 20% by volume directly into the potting mix. It helps retain moisture, buffers nutrients, and keeps roots cool, especially useful in hot climates or when you're growing sensitive crops. Leaf mold isn't exactly instant gratification, but it really does pay off. I know a lot of gardeners want rapid results, but leaf mold is more of an investment. In my own backyard beds, it took nearly a year to see the first full benefits, but once it was established, the beds practically managed themselves. Water retention gets better, soil structure stabilizes, and plant roots can penetrate more deeply and evenly. Over time, you're not just feeding your crops, you're feeding the soil itself. That's why serious gardeners tend to shift their focus from hot, fast compost to these slower, fungal-rich amendments. Just a few final thoughts. Make your soil work for you, not against you. If you're tired of turning compost piles all the time, chasing temperature charts, and losing nutrients, leaf mold is your solution. Start collecting leaves now, pile them in a shaded area, keep them moist, and then just leave them alone. Over the months, you'll end up with a product that actually outperforms hot compost when it comes to long-term soil health, root development, and plant resilience. And remember, adding a bit of hot compost can help accelerate early growth, but leaf mold is really the backbone. For those ready to step up their composting game, check out the Rio Temp Backyard Pro Compost Thermometer, linked in the description. It makes management easier and ensures consistency without all the guesswork. If you found this useful, go ahead and subscribe to Farm Logic for more actionable gardening strategies. And hey, share this video with your fellow gardeners, because the more people shift to soil-first, fungal-friendly practices, the stronger our gardens and our harvests become.